the fifth Adhyaya of Sri Bhagavad Gita, the Karma Sannyasa Yoga, the path of union by the renunciation of actions. Krishna here gives much more clarity about the various aspects of Karma Yoga and describes its importance as a prime path for the spiritual aspirant. The path of renouncing the actions, Karma Sannyasa, starts with Karma Yoga. Later, as the maturity of the mind and the understanding sinks in, one becomes wiser with knowledge. The vision of the wise and the conduct in life are also clearly mentioned. Krishna describes what is true happiness in life and how we can achieve that. And the final three shlokas are the link to the sixth Adhyaya related to meditation needed to imbibe this or assimilate this knowledge firmly into our life. The purpose of this Adhyaya is to get better clarity of the role of Karma Yoga and Karma Sannyasa in the spiritual journey of the aspirant. The main message of this Adhyaya is that without Karma Yoga, there cannot be Karma Sannyasa. What Krishna says as two paths initially in the third Adhyaya, Lokesmin Dvividha Nishta, he says, is essentially the one path. He now describes where Karma Yoga is chronologically the first stage and knowledge and Karma Sannyasa is a later stage of the same path to attain the divine. The first verse of the fifth Adhyaya starts with Arjuna's question. This question arises out of Arjuna's dilemma. In the last verse of the fourth Adhyaya, Krishna tells Arjuna to destroy the ignorance, which is the root cause of all the problems, with the sword of knowledge. He says, Tasmat Jnana Sambhutam Ritstam Gnanasinatmanaha, and get up and fight this war. Yogamatishto Tishta Bharata, and do your karma, do your duties, Arjuna. And hearing these apparently contrasting statements of knowledge and karma, Arjuna is now faced with a dilemma. Whether he should pursue actions with the Karma Yoga attitude or he should renounce the actions and seek the knowledge. And this is the basis of his question. What is better, Karma Yoga or Karma Sannyasa, the renunciation of karma? Karmanam Sannyasam Punaha Yogam Cha Shansasi. He says, Oh Krishna, you praise both Karma Yoga and Karma Sannyasa, renunciation of actions. Etayoho yat ekam tanme bruhi sunishchitam. He says, out of these two, please tell me one which is definitely the most beneficial for me, which is Shreya. Out of the four pursuits of humans, the Chaturtha Purushartha that we all pursue in our life, the first three, the Dharma, Artha and the Kama, are called the Preya pursuits, the Preya Purushartha, whereas the final moksha, complete internal freedom, is the Shreya Purushartha or the Shreya pursuit. In essence, according to Vedas, our final goal in life is our spiritual goal to attain the absolute divinity and become free from all our limited identifications and bondages. The other three pursuits are also important in life, but they are the means to attain the final pursuit. Arjuna asks here Krishna to tell him one choice out of the two, Karma Yoga or Karma Sannyasa, which will lead him to the final goal. And Krishna answers and he says, praises Karma Yoga, says it is better than renunciation of action. Says, Sannyasaha cha Karma Yogaha Ubhau Nishreyasa Kara Ubhau. He says, Oh Arjuna, both Karma Yoga and Karma Sannyasa both lead to Shreya, both lead to upliftment. Karma Yoga, but out of the two, Karma Yoga Vishishyate, he says, Karma Yoga is better than the renunciation of actions. Krishna says, out of these two, if you have to choose one, Karma Yoga is the preferred for you. The majority of the people are suitable for Karma Yoga as the first step in the spiritual journey, as most of us are highly attached to karma or actions. And we take this opportunity to purify our actions by doing it in the correct way with the right internal attitude. In the Vedas, based on our eligibility, we are given the preferred path. In the Upanishada, the Gnana is a better eligible path for the seeker who is much more enlightened. Karma Yoga is a very important tool for dissolving our impurities, such as our strong likes and dislikes, Raga, Dvesha, Shitilikaran, leading to purification of our inner mind, Antahkarana Shuddhi, which will only make us suitable to pursue the path of knowledge. Only such a mature mind can be ready for the understanding of the divine knowledge, the Gnana. Now Krishna praises and equates Karma Yogi to a sannyasi. He says, Yona dveshti na kangshati, one who does not have any strong attractions, repulsions, raga, dvesha, Gneyasa Nitya Sannyasi. Know that this Karma Yogi is a ever sannyasi. Nirdvandvahi Sukham Bandhyat Pramuchyate. By getting above his strong likes and dislikes, by being in Samatva, he achieves the internal bliss from all the life bondages. In the eyes of Krishna, a Karma Yogi who renounces fruits of actions is actually the same as sannyasi who renounces all the prescribed karma. Krishna says Karma Yoga and self-knowledge are the same path. Sankhya Yoga Pruthak Bala Pravadantina Panditaha. He says knowledge and Karma Yoga, they give different fruits. It is said only by immature people like children, not by the knowledgeable or the wise people. Ekamapi samyaga astitaha ubhayo vindate phalam. He says if a person is well determined on one path, for both the final result is the same. It is the knowledge leading to freedom, gnana se moksha. The final result or the goal that you achieve on both the paths, he says, is the same. Only immature people with limited understanding believe that Karma Yoga do not lead us to the goal of or knowledge, and karma and knowledge are different paths. The wise man knows very clearly that karma and knowledge are two different destinations on the same path. Thus, if the person is well determined on the path of Karma Yoga, eventually he will or she will purify his own mind and later pursue the path of knowledge to attain moksha. According to Krishna, for both the goal is knowledge which leads to freedom. Yat sankhya prapyate sthanam, the state which is achieved by knowledge, the eternal freedom or moksha, tad yogairapi gamyate, the same state is achieved by Karma Yoga. Ekam sankyam cha yogam cha, one who knows well that self-knowledge and Karma Yoga is one and not different, yaha pashyati sapashyati, and that person knows truly he or she has the correct vision. The final goal of moksha that is reached by knowledge path by sannyasi is the same goal that is reached by the practice of Karma Yoga by the householder. Shri Krishna says that the true vision is that there is only one path to attain the spirituality or the divine, and that path starts with the right actions, with the right attitude, that is Karma Yoga, and later with the right understanding we attain the divine knowledge by Gnana Yoga practice. And this is the vision of the wise person, and that is the correct vision. He says without Karma Yoga, sannyasa can become miserable. Ayogataha sannyasa dukham aptum. For one who has not practiced Karma Yoga, renunciation or Karma sannyasa is very painful. Yoga yukta muni brahma nachirenati gacchati. He says, but one who has practiced Karma Yoga, who has practiced selfless actions, he becomes muni or becomes wise, acquires the knowledge in no time and achieves liberation. Therefore, Karma Yoga is the first and the most important step, and therefore Krishna says it is the preferred than Karma sannyasa or renunciation. Krishna now in the next shloka describes the spiritual journey, how from Karma Yoga we can lead to the knowledge of our own self. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma bhavati. He says one who does Karma Yoga purifies his or her inner mind. And vishuddhatma vijitatma bhavati. And this person with a pure inner mind achieves victory over his own self, develops a kind of self-restraint over mind and body. And vijitatma jitendriya bhavati. And this person achieves complete control over his own senses, which becomes natural. And this is a real success of life in the eyes of Krishna. And that person is able to realize this knowledge, sarva bhutatma bhutatma, that I manifest as a soul of all the beings. And this is the climax of the knowledge. Kurvarnapi navlipyate. Even while in action, this person does not get bound to actions. And this kind of knowledge, I manifest as a soul of all the beings, sarva bhutatma bhutatma. This knowledge makes me understand my true inner self, atma, as my true nature. And wisely, we are able to discriminate viveka, this from that, what is not the true self, the anatma. And like the body, sharira, senses, indriya, mana, buddhi, all these are the parts of anatma. The individual soul is the same as the universal spirit, and this is the epitome of the divine knowledge, where we are able to firmly know that one tattva, the divinity, manifests as different beings or things in this existence. And this is the knowledge of the wise person, the enlightened person. And even in knowledge, that person does not get bound to actions by knowing his or her true self. Kurvanapi na lipyate. In the next 2 verses, Krishna shows how a wise person is not bound to actions and how they live in this world. It says, Yuktaha tattvatvita eva iti manya. This is what the wise believe. Kinchitta karomi. I don't do anything. I'm not doing anything while seeing, by listening, by touching, by smelling, while eating, while walking, sleeping, breathing, by speaking, while purgating, by accepting, by opening or closing our eyes, by the firm understanding that indriyani indriyartheshu vartanta, that all the sense organs are engaging in the objects. Eva manyat kinchit na karomi iti. He says, firmly believing that I am not doing anything. Everything is happening at a material plane in the 3 gunas of the nature. Vedanta teaches us that whatever is happening happens at a material plane. The seen, drashya, it happens within the 3 gunas of the Prakriti, while our true self, the seer, the drashta, is completely separate from the seen and remains as such always. And this clear discrimination, viveka, between the drashya, the seen, and the drashta, seer, is possible only with the awareness of our true self. And this is only possible by wisely discriminating viveka between the two, the drashta, drashya, viveka. In this way, the wise man does not get attached to the karma. And how does that wise man conduct in this life? Bhagavan Krishna describes that the wise understands all aspects of karma yoga and does his actions. Brahmani adhyaya karmani. One who surrenders all the actions to the Lord, Ishwararpana bhava, sangam tyaktva karoti yaha, performs all the actions without the binding to the fruits of the actions with the prasada buddhi, lipyatena sapapena, does not get bound to any sins, padmapatram ivambasa, and lives like a lotus leaf in water. The wise man has lived entire life with the attitude of karma yoga, and thus even after enlightenment continues to live the life in the same way. Their actions are like an offering to the God, Ishwararpana bhava, like worship to the divine. The actions of the wise are so pure and selfless for helping others, and they are done with a pure heart for giving back to the society, and such actions are very pious and do not cause any sin for them. Their life is lived like a lotus leaf, how it lives in water, while the lotus remains completely attached and dry even while staying in the wet water. Similarly, the wise man, while staying in this world consisting of all different types of people, material possessions, does not get attached to people or material prosperity. And what are the real benefits of working with this attitude? Krishna shows in the next verse. He says the main benefit of karma yoga is inner purification. Karma yogi performs all the selfless actions with the body, mind, intellect, with the senses. Karma kurvanti sangam tyaktva, and does all these actions without any attachments, atma shuddhaye, only for the purification of his or her own mind. And the final goal is to achieve the purity of the inner mind by doing karma yoga, so that he or she then becomes eligible to pursue the path of knowledge, ultimately leading to the knowledge of the self, which is going to free us from all the bondages. What is the benefit of achieving this inner purification? Bhagavan says, the pure mind gives peace and prepares us for the self-knowledge. Yukta karma phalam tyaktva. With awareness, this karma yogi renounces all the results of actions. Shantim apnoti naishtikam, and that person achieves eternal peace. Whereas ayuktaha, kamakarena, the unaware, the selfish, acts by his desires alone, phale sakto nibadyate, and remains attached to all the results of actions. The karma yogi acts without strong likes and dislikes, the raga dvesha, and accepts all the results of the actions with complete self-acceptance, without exceptions, prasada buddhi. They have no qualms or complaints for the results. And this attitude brings with it a lot of peace of mind and satisfaction in life. They don't keep on having greed for having more and more. Instead, this approach gives their mind a lasting peace. Shantim apnoti naishtikam, Bhagavan says. And that is why the karma yogi achieves the highest knowledge of the self, which gives them the correct understanding of the life and its goals. Now Krishna begins the pure knowledge part, the Shuddha Gnana Prakarana. He says, Vashi, the wise who has control over the inner self, Sarva Karmani Manasa Sanyasya, renounces all the actions by his mind, intellect, Navadware pure dehi, lives in this body with the 9 gates, our 2 eyes, the 2 ears, the 2 nostrils, the mouth, and our excretory and procreatory organs are the 9 gates of our body, all the senses through which all the knowledge comes in and the karma happens. Na eva kurvan na karayan, by not doing anything and by not getting anything done, sukham aste, lives happily in this body with 9 gates, with the eternal bliss. Guruma, while explaining the difference between the unwise and the wise, says that the unwise falsely identifies with his or her own body-mind complex, does pride, mithya, abhimana, kartrutva, and thus gets bound to the actions, karma, and gets the world of pain and misery, the sukha dukkha rupa sansara. However, the wise is free from this kartrutva, the ego of doership, is firmly established in the real self, akarta, atma swarupa, and thus is not bound to the actions, karma, and its results, the karma phala, and is liberated from all the actions and its results and this world that is sansara. And what is that eternal knowledge? What is the divine consciousness? Bhagavan describes in the next shloka, Lokasya surjati prabhuhu. The Lord creates for humans na kartrutvam, no doership pride, na karmani, no actions, neither na karma phala sanyoga, neither attachments to the results of the actions, swabhavaha tu pravartate, but all this happens in the prakriti, in the anatma. Krishna again clearly shows the difference between the true self, the atma, and the false identification, anatma, and the prakriti. The Lord Divinity is the creator of this existence. The entire creation, the prakriti or the nature, is created from the divine. However, the creator and the creation are distinctly different in terms of their attributes. The creator in true sense, the Paramatma, is devoid of any attributes in the form of gunas, the 3 gunas, and therefore no action happens in the true creator. All the actions happen in the creation, the prakriti, which consists of the 3 gunas, and this is what creates all the actions, the karma, the pride of the actions, kartrutva, and the results of the actions, karma phala. The root cause of this created world, the sansara, is the ignorance of our real self, ajnana or avidya on the individual plane, or maya on a collective plane, which continues this cycle, swabhava tu pravartate. As the root cause is ignorance, ajnana of our true self, the solution is only true self-knowledge, atma-jnana, which can liberate the person from this illusionary world or sansara. Thus the main problem is the world, that is the jagata, plus we add our own judgments, and which creates a perceived world, the sansara, which is the cause for bondage. Why this world, sansara, is created and why this birth happens, Krishna describes in the next verse. All the impressions, the papa, punya, all they occur in the anatma, and they are the cause for sansara. He says, Vibhu, that omnipresent consciousness, the Brahma, na addatte kasyachit papam na cha evam sukrutam vibhuhu, he says, does not carry anyone's sins or good deeds. It is asanga, it is unattached. Ajnanena avrutam gnanam, the self-knowledge, atma-jnana, is obscured by this ignorance, avidya or the maya, tena muhyanti jantavaha, which is the cause for the attachment or the bondage for all the human beings. And thus the final solution for all our miseries lie within us, to know that we are the completely fulfilled self. And this self-knowledge of our true self is the only way to remove the ignorance of our false self and to illuminate our true self. Krishna in the next shloka describes this, praises the self-knowledge and gives an example of the sun. He says, Gnanena tu tadach gnanam esham nashitam atmanaha, one whose self-ignorance is destroyed by the self-knowledge, adityavach gnanam, thus as the sunlight destroys the darkness, which is swaprakasha, prakashayati tatparam, and for them this entire self-knowledge illuminates the internal consciousness, because it is paraprakasha, not just it is swaprakasha, it illuminates itself, but it illuminates as a satchit ananda swarupa, it illuminates his eternity. This knowledge is supreme, and there is no alternative to knowledge in Vedanta. Actions are important as they help us remain occupied, help us cleanse ourselves, and help us to help others. And here Bhagavan gives the example of a sun. A sun is always there. Our true self always ever exists. never gets changed or gets destroyed. And we need to know this reality of our true self. And all of us are eligible for this self-knowledge, provided we desire and have some proper understanding to wisely discriminate viveka, the detachment towards a material reality, vairagya. And this is not an easy task and needs a spiritual pursuit with discipline to understand and assimilate this knowledge in our life. And this pursuit of knowledge, the Jnana Sadhana and its benefits, the Jnana Phala, is described in the next shloka. Bhagavan says, Tad Buddhaya Tadatmanaha. Surrender to the Supreme and aspire to be one with the Self by weeding out all our doubts. Tannishtha, firm resolve to change our sanskaras. Tat Parayanaha, constantly being engaged in Brahma or divinity as our final goal. Gnana Nirdhuta Kalmashaha, once all the impurities are washed away by this self-knowledge, Apunaravrittim Gachanti. The benefit or the result is that we achieve liberation. We do not have to come back to this earth again and again. The pursuit of knowledge needs a disciplined lifestyle with perseverance, involved with the study of the scriptures, trying to understand what scriptures say, and then assimilate in life. This needs a learned guru who can decipher the real meaning of the scriptures. The first step is to listen to the words of Vedanta, Shravana, from a learned guru. Then there are many obstacles that occur on this journey. One of the main obstacles are the doubts which occur, as there is a dichotomy between my experience and what Vedanta tells me. This has to be removed by an internal process of contemplation, which is called manana, by the use of logic, which is in accordance to the logic given in the scriptures rather than my own logic. And the third and the final step is to assimilate this knowledge into our life by Vedantic meditation called Nididhyasana, so that this knowledge presides in our life and all our responses in life happen based on this knowledge. And this knowledge washes off all the impurities of our mind and shows us our true nature, which is still awareness. This wise man who is completely free demonstrates a completely different vision and attitude, which Krishna describes in the next words. He says the wise have an equanimous vision. They have a samatva drashti. Pandita samadarshinaha. He says this wise sees only oneness everywhere. In the Vidya Vinaya Sampanna Brahmane, the knowledgeable and the humble Brahman, in the cow, the elephant, the dog, and the outcast. The vision of the wise person is on the one tattva that pervades in the world, which is the substratum of all the existence. And upon this tattva, there are many perceived identifications, manifestations of the names and the forms, which creates the different shapes and the forms of different animals and humans. Most people have a vision of seeing all the differences in this world consisting of the names and the forms, whereas the wise man sees the universal tattva as all pervading within all the beings and all the animals. The wise man does not perceive the differences based on the three gunas, but perceives the oneness which transcends the three gunas. And it depends on our own vision whether to see one or many superimpositions. This should be our essential goal of life. The goal of life is to have the sameness of vision, the samatva darshana. Ihaivata irjita sargaha. He says those who have won over this world here, yesham samyastita manaha. He says those whose minds have been firmly established in the one, the samaswarup Brahma, nirdosham hi samam Brahma, because Satchidanand Brahma is nirdosha, is innocent, without any blemish, and his sama is same. Tasmat te brahmani stitaha. Therefore, one who is firmly established in samatva is firmly rooted in Brahma. So Krishna shows that what is a true vision, to be able to see the one everywhere, which is the same, sarvatra samatva darshana. This vision dissolves all the differences by the right understanding. The internal understanding is to avoid undue importance to the worldly things or objects and being equipoised in any and all situations. And this is a central message of Bhagavad Gita. The entire spiritual journey is also for having this kind of a balanced vision, samatva. The spiritual journey first must start with the understanding that all the change that needs to happen within myself and nowhere outside. This approach is therefore called inner engineering or inside-out approach. The outer world keeps changing, Most of the situations in the world are not under my control. On the other hand, my mind is under my control. I can decide to remain calm, sama, in midst of all the chaos of the daily life. My goal should be my peace of mind, and this is my responsibility and no one else's. How can we achieve that samatva attitude in our life? How can we have this balanced approach in life? Krishna describes in the next shloka. He says, Priyam prapya na prahashyet. After getting what one likes, does not get too elated. Apriyam prapya na udvijet. And after not getting something that we don't like, if someone does not get too upset. Sthira buddhihi, one whose intellect is focused. Asammudaha, one who has no attachments. Brahmavid brahmani sthitaha, only such a wise man can become firmly established in self-knowledge. Krishna describes the internal attitude of the wise person who is seated in samatva. They have a balanced approach to life. They take success and failure in the same stride. And this internal attitude is possible only because their intellect is focused and their mind is calm. By reducing these dualities and accepting them as they are, their mind remains composed during the daily situations. Such a person who does not have any attachments or delusion becomes eligible to understand the self-knowledge. Samatva does not mean to be emotionless, niras, but is an art to avoid the extremes of emotions and to get over the negative emotions soon. We need to learn how to manage our emotions by keeping our head above our heart. And this balanced approach, samatva, teaches us to live in the present moment, now, and not brood over our past, and neither to have too much of anxiety for the future. The wise person, the gnani, has no identification with his body and thus has no attachments. He is nirmoha. And what is that real happiness? Krishna alludes to this in the next few verses. He says, real happiness means to have inner bliss. Bahya sparsheshu asaktatma. He says, one who is unattached to the happiness by the outer sense contact. Vindati atmani yat sukham. He obtains that eternal happiness in one's own self. Sabrahma yoga yukta atma. That balanced person who is firmly connected with the divine, sukham akshayam ashnute, experiences everlasting happiness or divine bliss. Krishna talks about two types of happiness. One that is obtained from the outer contact of the sense organs with the objects of this world, including persons. This happiness is external happiness derived from the objects, and this is called Vishaya Sukha. The other one is the inner happiness, which is our own true nature, and this happiness is derived from within, and this is called Brahma Sukha. Upanishad says happiness is within you. You don't need to look outside for happiness. The outer object-oriented happiness, the Vishaya Sukha, is experienced by achieving something in life, and this is oriented towards material happiness. On the other hand, the inner bliss is achieved by the right understanding, does not require us to give up but does require us to give up our misconceptions, to give up our dogmas, our wrong beliefs, and only then we can understand our true self, the Atma Sukha. Thus, a seeker on this path needs to learn to let go and then only expect to achieve something meaningful. Krishna shows the ephemeral nature of the sense pleasures. He says the sense pleasures are deprecated because it gives pain. Yehi sansparsha bhogaha. He says the pleasures obtained by the contact with the senses with the objects, dukkhayo naya evate. They are the cause for miseries only, by indulgence, by overindulgence without restraint. Adyantavanta kaunteya. Oh Arjuna, they come and go. They are all transient. Nateshu ramate bhutaha. The wise people do not indulge in them. Krishna strongly rebukes us not to overindulge in the sensory pleasures alone. In his view, sense pleasures are a cause for pain. Krishna also gives another reason for not pursuing sense pleasures endlessly. He says the happiness they give is very transient. Ishvara has created a creation, Srushti, or this world, Jagata, which is full of happiness, which is Sukhada. While the humans achieve by their own judgments, by their labels, by their strong choices, raga, dvesha, strong likes, dislikes, insistence, their obsessions. They have converted this beautiful creation into a world seen only by our own lens, samsara, which creates all the miseries, the dukkha. And that's why Krishna now says one who controls his desires and his anger is truly happy. He says, Sasukhi Naraha. It gives a definition who is truly a happy person, one who is capable of controlling in this lifetime before this body comes to an end. Kama krododbhavam vegam, the force of the desires and the anger. Sayuktaha, that person is a real yogi. Krishna defines what is true happiness in life, what is true success in life. He says one who controls her incessant desires and anger is a truly happy person. He clearly means that true happiness does not come from outside, from material objects or from people. The main mischief mongers are our own inner mind, which creates the desires one after the other, and when they are not fulfilled due to some reason, it leads to anger. We need to control this force of desires and anger, which is indeed a great force. It is here we need self-restraint. It is in this job, Krishna says, we should not postpone and do it in this lifetime itself. Not only they create a lot of disturbances within us, but they also invite other vices such as delusion, moha, greed, lobha, pride, mada, and jealousy, matsarya. Thus Krishna says we need more efforts to control these big enemies of ours. Krishna says one who controls this force of anger and desires is a truly happy person. And this kind of natural restraint is found only in the knowledgeable yogis, the wise people, the man with wisdom. Now Krishna describes the attributes of the wise in the next few verses, how the culmination of the Sankhya Yogi and what are their attributes. Those who surely have anta sukha, they are happy in their own inner self, anta aramaha, their peace is also inside, anta jyotirhi, their light of knowledge is also inside. That yogi, one who is one with the Brahman, Brahma Nirvana Madhigachati, achieves the liberation or the moksha. Krishna is now describing the understanding of the wise man who is deeply rooted in wisdom. This understanding is attributed to the self-knowledge where they clearly know that their own self is the bliss form. They do not seek pleasure from the outer objects, and that they have a sense control which has become very natural. Though they do have natural desires common to all, they are able to scrutinize them and fulfill only the simple desires for their living, but do not crave for material possessions at any cost, as they understand the reality of their existence. And how do such enlightened people live in this world? Rushayaha, one who are these kind of rishis, those who have seen the tattva, sarva bhuta hite rataha, live for the betterment of all, yatatmanaha, their mind and senses are under control, chinnadveda, all their doubts have been destroyed, kshina kalmashaha, their sins have been washed away, brahma nirvanam labante, and such rishis achieve the freedom, the moksha. Such enlightened rishi live a non-violent, selfless life for the betterment of the humanity. For the seeker, for the sadhak or an aspirant on the path, these are like goals to emulate. Coming to the end of the 5th Adhyaya, Krishna summarizes the steps of the spiritual journey. He says, Kama krodha vyuktanam, one who becomes devoid of the desires and the anger. Yatinam, one who constantly puts efforts. Yatachetasam, one whose mind is naturally balanced. Sahaja sanyama. Viditatmanam, one who knows truly his own self. Abhitaha, Brahma Nirvanam Vartate, from all sides achieves and lives in eternal peace. Now the last 3 shlokas are the link to the 6th Adhyaya, which is a path to self-restraint, Atma Sanyama Yoga, by meditation, Dhyana Yoga. The subject of the 6th Adhyaya is Vedantic meditation, Nididhyasana, which helps us to assimilate this knowledge into our life, to make it aparoksha, directly experienced, so that all our opposite impressions, the viparit sanskaras, are nullified and the knowledge becomes firmly assimilated in our life. The subject of the 27th shloka is meditation, the Dhyana Nirupan. 28th is who should be the Dhyata, the meditator. And finally in the 29th shloka, the goal is described, what is the Dhyaya of our meditation. What is meditation in brief? Krishna describes by Han Sparshan Bahikrutva, keeping all the outer objects outside during meditation. Chakshu Chaivantare Bruvoho, and focus our eyes in the center of the eyebrows. Prana pranau samakrutva. He says, by keeping the prana and apana in balance, nasabhyantara charinau, by keeping the breath in balance. In this verse, Krishna describes how meditation is performed. In meditation, the outer object should remain outside, meaning the mind should not keep thinking about the material objects. There is a close relationship between the breath and the mind. If we want to quieten our mind, it is better to quieten our breath, control our breath by pranayama, and this in turn will quieten our mind. The breathing techniques of relaxation like pranayama heals us to modulate our mind and make it quite calm, and this can become conducive for meditation. In the next shloka, Krishna describes who is the ideal meditator, the dhyata. That Muni, one whose intellect and his mind is under control, yata indriya manah buddhi moksha parayanaha, whose goal of life is to become free, vigata ichha bhaya krodha, one who has let go all the desires, fears and anger, yah sada mukta eva saha, such a person becomes ever free from all the bondage, becomes jivan mukta. Meditation is for the person who is contemplative, who is more internally driven, antarmukha, whereas an outwardly person-driven personality, bahirmukha, has a lot of difficulty in meditation. A certain level of self-restraint is necessary if one wants to pursue meditation as sadhana, and this helps to improve our concentration during meditation. Our lifestyle should also be conducive to meditation. For 1 hour of meditation, one has to change the rest 23 hours of his or her own life. Coming to the final shloka of the 5th Adhyaya, Krishna describes the goal of meditation, the Adhyaya. And Sopadik Dhyan, he describes his form, Bhoktaram Yagna Tapasam. He says one who is the beneficiary of the Yagna and the Tapa, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, and one who knows this as the Lord as of all the beings, Surudam Sarvabhutanam, as a friend of all the beings, Gnatva Mam Shantim Ruchyati. By knowing me in this way, one achieves the eternal bliss. Bhagavan says, Krishna describes his Sopadik Swarupa, his form, divinity, as a final goal for meditation, and by knowing Ishvara in this way, one achieves eternal peace by being one with the divine. And this is possible only by the knowledge of the oneness, the Aikya Gnana, and this gives the eternal peace of oneness in Samadhi. Coming to the end of the 5th Adhyaya of Sri Bhagavad Gita, Om Tat Sata iti Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Karma Sannyasa Yogo Nama Panchamodhyayaha.